بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد الخلق أجمعين. اللهم ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وارحمنا واهدنا واهد بنا وعافنا يا ربنا وارزقنا وبارك اللهم فيما أعطيتنا وارحمنا وأنت الرحمن وأنت الرحيم يا رب العالمين. اللهم يا ربنا زدنا علما يا عزيز يا كريم، وادخلنا يا ربنا جنات الفردوس راضين مرضيين بمغفرتك ورحمتك وأنت أرحم الراحمين. Inshallah, we continue on with Surah Al-Ankabut. We completed last week the ayah number 29. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ. And for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will know the ones who truly believed, or He will show His knowledge of who are truly believers. And وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ, the hypocrites who are acting differently than they are believing, or the ones who their iman and their faith in their hearts is different than their actions, different than their words. The ayah number 13. As we continue on from last week, we continued on throughout ayah number 13, throughout the ayah number 27, and the ayah number 28. وَلُوطًا إِذْ قَالَ لِقَوْمِهِ إِنَّكُمْ لَتَأْتُونَ الْفَاحِشَةَ مَا سَبَقَكُمْ بِهَا مِنْ أَحَدٍ مِنَ الْعَالَمِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings up stories in the after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave these examples of, as we mentioned, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to know the true believers and the ones who are munafiqeen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave as two examples of one of them was Ibrahim alayhi salam, and the second one to show the truthfulness, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought it up and showed it was the people of Lut alayhi salam. Lut alayhi salam, he's the nephew of Ibrahim alayhi salam. He's the one who, in the nephew of Ibrahim alayhi salam, he believed with him. He migrated, or he left the land between the two rivers from Iraq. He left with him, with his wife Sarah, with some of the believers who believed with Ibrahim alayhi salam. They all left together. The second story here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after He mentioned Lut alayhi salam in ayah number 26, فَآمَنَ لَهُ لُوط, believed from him, وَقَالَ إِنِّي مُهَاجِرٌ إِلَى رَبِّي إِنَّهُ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. He is the Aziz, He is the Hakim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted them Ishaq wa Yaqub to Ibrahim alayhi salam. The ayah number 28, and this is where we start today from the tafsir. وَلُوط alayhi salam إذ قال لقومه إنكم لتأتون الفاحشة ما سبقكم بها من أحد من العالمين. Lut addressed his people and he says, you are bringing the fahisha, you're bringing or taking the fahisha, or committing the fahisha. The fahisha is a sin usually of severe nature. Mainly it includes the nature of sexual nature, say zina, homosexuality, all kinds of sins, raping and on and on. This is severe kind of, sins are committed. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioning it under the name of fahisha. Lut alayhi salam says to his people, you are committing, you are practicing the fahisha, this kind of sin. Ma sabaqakum, nobody has ever beat you from min al-alamin, from all mankind. Nobody has ever done this before. This is something that you collectively are doing, you are practicing. And this is common practice. أَإِنَّكُمْ لَتَأْتُونَ الرِّجَالَ وَتَقْطَعُونَ السَّبِيلَ. Are you approaching men? وَتَقْطَعُونَ السَّبِيلَ. And the literal meaning of تَقْطَعُونَ السَّبِيلَ, you're cutting off the sabil, the road, the path. The sabil, you're cutting off the path. what we're going to go back to this inshallah. وَتَأْتُونَ فِينَا دِينكُمُ الْمُنْكَرَ, and you are committing or you are practicing in your nadi, in your gatherings, the gatherings that you are, when you gather together, you are committing the munkar. The munkar is that the well known to be bad, well known, which is you yourselves know that this is something bad. فما كان جواب قومه إلا أن قالوا ائتنا بعذاب الله إن كنت من الصادقين. There was no answer from his people to answer back except one thing: bring the torture, bring the torment, bring the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if you're telling us the truth. So the two things he objected to, and you notice the message here. You notice that Lut alayhi salam, throughout the message to his people, throughout the Quran, hardly ever mentioned the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the violation of like shirk or kufr. These people are so indulgent into their own sins, even the kufr, there's no way to even talk about it at this point because they're so deep into it and they're bringing things kind of really distracting them from anything of that depth of thinking. So Lut alayhi salam, he's asking his people, you're bringing the fahisha, you come to the fahisha. And look at the word, لا تأتون الفاحشة. You are surely approaching it, you are committing it, you are practicing it. So the understanding here is that this fahisha become common thing practiced, nobody's objecting to, nobody's saying anything about, nobody's saying it's bad, it's the opposite. Everybody is considering it as a normal thing. It is something we do, everybody's doing it. We don't even mention anything bad about it from ethical point of view, from medicinal, from kind of sickness or disease kind of point of view, from the common bad effect of it on the society and the fabric of the society, and on and on. Nobody ever bring up anything. Became something practiced, became something that is done on normal basis to bring normalcy into it, like normal, like no big deal. Like is the opposite. Is actually when Lut alayhi salam objected, they wanted to get rid of him. Why? لأنهم قوم يتطهرون, because people, they're being cleansed. They're actually speaking the opposite of what they think of, what they practice. They want to get rid of them. Anybody who says or believes or talks about something different than this kind of thought, this kind of ideology of committing this type of sin, he should be kicked out. That's in their opinion. So what happened? The two sins are لَتَأْتُونَ الرِّجَالِ, you are coming after men, or you are approaching men. وَتَقْطَعُونَ السَّبِيلَ. What do you mean cutting off the road? What is the meaning? The scholars talked about it in two different ways. تَقْطَعُونَ السَّبِيلَ, you are become road, you basically robbers. You go after, you just kind of intercept travelers in the road and you go after them and you rob them. You get rid of you take their money, as well as they actually rape them. They used to rape them also as well. So basically they are terrorizing all the areas around them by qatra sabil. They become highway robbers, more or less, kind of like that. The other meaning also, which is also implied, and there's no conflict between both, is taqta'un sabil, is that when men approach men with this kind of sexual desire, they were no longer producing, khilafah. There's no, mankind will be cut off. The road for survival for all humanity would be stopped, would be cut off. That road would be cut off. And that is a huge crime to be committed for the sake of humanity. If we, if we don't reproduce, all humanity will eventually shrink in time and eventually will disappear in certain periods of time. And then this is, well known in the science today, in the, in the sociology, in the nation studies. If a nation does not reproduce in the percentage of 1.2 to 1.4% minimum, this nation will go into demise and total disappearance within 100 years, within 150 years. These studies are well known. And today, a lot of societies, and there's well studies, like, for instance, the societies which is they don't produce enough, offspring, they will eventually disappear. Like, for instance, there's talks about this. If you look, this is not the subject of our research today. As an example, the Japanese community, because their elders are way too many, their young ones who are working are fewer. There's no production. There's no, birth rate. The birth rate is so small. It's actually the Japanese community in the way of disappearance. The German community, similarly, they're suffering from the similar consequences, and on and on and on. If we don't have offspring, if we don't produce, if we don't have children who carry our inheritance from knowledge, from power, from holding the earth, from running the affairs of our communities, we will go into the mines because we'll die and nobody's going to take our place. What did these people do? They committed exactly this type of crime. They are no longer producing offspring to continue the survival of humanity beyond their time. So these people actually they're sealed the fate of humanity. If all the humans act like this, within 40, 50, 60 years, 100 years or so, would be no more humans will be on the face of this earth. We have securely, and with all kinds of methods, we have sealed off the fate of humanity, and we completely cut it all off. Is that the meaning here? Possible. Possible Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking specifically about this. وَتَقْطَعُونَ السَّبِيلَ, and you're cutting off the road to good humanity, the road for people to flourish in the future by practicing these things. Also, by cutting off the sabil, cutting off the road, is that they're highway robbers. They used to go out, and that was their business, is basically the feeding off other communities, the travelers, the merchants who were passing by the area they were in. And by the way, today we have no idea where they're at. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed their communities, and we have no idea about the location where they were in and what has happened to them. And most likely, people talk about they were somewhere in the borders between, the Arabian Peninsula today and Jordan, or somewhere in Jordan area today. So it was near a highway of travel throughout that area, throughout the region. So their source of income is to feed off of other people by robbing them, by utilizing them, by abusing them, and on and on. That's very solid reason also as well. That's very solid understanding of what they used to do. Number three crime. So what was the objection of Lut alayhi salam? Number one, you are approaching men and you are cutting off the road, you are cutting off the offspring, production. Number three, وَتَأْتُونَ فِي نَادِيكُمُ الْمُنْكَرَ. And nadi is a place of gathering. Say more like a club, like say the club of when the people used to meet, like, for instance, in Mecca in the days of Quraysh, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to go to the Kaaba, and most of the people, Abu Jahl and they used to gather around the Kaaba. That was their nadi, that was their place, that was their club, that was the place of meeting. What did they talk about? What was the exchanges there? That gives you an idea about what kind of society, what kind of community they are. If they sit there and they talk about good, productive things, positive things, you know what the future is. If they're sitting there, bringing munkar, like the people of Lut, they're actually gathering, but they're doing things that's not acceptable. That is completely wrong from a human point of view. As they used to do, completely, they're sinning, they are committing these crimes in it. That is actually, it is something Lut alayhi salam objected to. And look what they are saying here. روى الإمام أحمد عن أم هانئ She says, Hani, رضي الله عنها, she asked Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, says, وَتَأْتُونَ فِي نَادِيكُمُ الْمُنْكَرِ. What was it you used to bring in your nadi, in your clubs, in your gatherings? The munkar. قال, this hadith on Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, يَحْذُفُونَ أَهْلَ الطَّرِيقِ وَيَسْخَرُونَ مِنْهُمْ. They used to stop the people who are passing in front of them, and they used to make fun of them. That's all their things they used to do. وَذَلِكَ الْمُنْكَرُ الَّذِي يَأْتُونَهُ. And this is munkar. By them, they're sitting in front of, on the road, cutting off the road, everybody passing by, they're making him as a joke, they're making fun of him, they're making, they're actually talking about him. It's one thing to say. Also, and this is, in Sahih al-Tirmidhi, and there's also another saying here on from Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. Ibn Abbas, one of the things that he used to say, that when he used to gather, they used to play, chance games or dice games. They used to waste their time on that. They, like kind of what you see today in most of some of these, coffee places, coffee houses, or cafes, or whatever it is. People, especially in the old countries, they play these, frivolous, useless games that nothing but a waste of time, like backgammon and on and on. Just they sit there for hours and hours and hours, or maybe they gamble, or maybe they sometimes they play. Chess games for money and on these different things. That's completely waste of time. That it's the community brings down the community. That's something used to do. They used to curse and cuss at each other in every other word. And this, subhanAllah, is something that tells you the level of the society and where they are today. And subhanAllah, today, find the society, the community, when they're clean, they don't use these cussing words, the bad words within their community. But once their level deteriorated, it becomes something common. As we always tell you, look at the community, look at the words they pick out to address each other, to talk each other. Some communities, they address each other with the utmost respect. The elders, they respect the elders. They call them with titles. They are very merciful. They are very polite with their younger. They address each other with respect. But if that disappears from the community and they address each other with nothing but cussing words and bad words and on, this is indicative of the society when it's becoming a worse and a bad society, and eventually a reason for them to deteriorate. They call each other names, eventually they hate each other, they fight amongst each other, and on and on. They used to do bad biological functions, pass gases in front of each other, like Ibn Abbas mentioned it in one of the things. They used to disrespect each other in a very bad way. So when they meet together, what is the treatment? What is the action between the community member that is indicative for their survival, for their good behavior? And if they treat each other this bad, if they talk to each other in a bad way, if they address each other with nothing but jokes and kind of humaza or lumaza, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, and He addressed it in the most and the punishment for it is so severe. He says, "Waylun likulli humazatin lumaza." Somebody who makes fun of others, somebody who is putting down others, degrading others, and on and on. Wail to him. What's going to happen? Oh, to come upon him. What's going to happen to him? Somebody who addresses people like this. So people do this. What do you think about the other sides of their community? Would they take care of their neighbors? Would they take care of their orphans? Would they even be good with their community members? Do they have the solidarity within the communities? They feed each other. The rich will feed the poor, and on and on. Definitely not. If they are amongst themselves, each other, when they are in good places, they are disrespectful. They are, condescending. They are in bad shape. What do you think in the state of duress? They're terrible. Lut alayhi salam came in and addressed all that. He says, you need to stop it. You guys are doing this. What was their jawab? They have nothing to counter back. They have nothing to say, oh no, our methods are right. Oh no, this is good and this is acceptable. No, none of this. They said one thing. If you're truthful, bring the torture of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon us. If you are really telling the truth. If you really know what you're talking about. In other words, they have nothing to defend themselves. They have nothing to say about themselves in this situation. The ayah number 30. قال رب انصرني على القوم المفسدين. Says, Ya Allah, give me nasr, help me, assist me, give me the end result to defeat, to stop al-mufsideen, the ones who commit the mischief, who commit fasad. As we hear this a lot in the Quran. Nuh alayhi salam, قال رب انصرني على القوم الكافرين. Allah, give me nasr, Ya Allah, help me with the people who denied or rejected, or the kuffar, and on and on. In other words, the meaning here, Lut alayhi salam gave up. There's nothing he could do. There's nothing he could say to them to correct their path, even to coerce them to do good, to push them to stay away from the path they're in, what they are committing, what they are doing within their communities. ولما جاءت آية number 31 في سورة العنكبوت ولما جاءت رسلنا إبراهيم بالبشرى قالوا إنا مهلكو أهل هذه القرية إن أهلها كانوا ظالمين. The story here, when the Rusul, and this is what it says, the messengers came, when our messengers came with the bushra, with the good news, to Ibrahim alayhi salam, قالوا, they said to him, إنا مهلكو أهل هذه القرية. We will destroy, we will cause halak, death, destruction, demise, removal for the occupants of this qaryah, of this village. إن أهلها, its ahl, its people, its occupants. كانوا ظالمين, the transgressors. The story in details in Surah Al-Dhariyat. وهل أتاك نبأ ضيف إبراهيم المكرمين إذ دخلوا عليه فقالوا سلاما قال سلام قوم منكرون فراغ إلى أهله فجاء بعجل سمين فقربه إليهم قال ألا تأكلون فأوجس منهم خيفة قالوا لا تخف وبشروه بغلام عليم. Do you know the story of the guests of Ibrahim, which is he did not recognize them? They approached him, they said salam upon you. He said salam, you are the unknown people to me. And then he went to his people. He brought a big calf, he slaughtered it, he cooked it, and he brought it to them. He got it closer to them. They refused to eat because they were angels, the three angels basically. And the scholars that talk about them as being Jibreel, Mikael, and Israfil, the three angels who came in to Ibrahim alayhi salam. And when he gave them the food, they did not approach it, but he got scared. It's like, oh, these are angels. They cannot be human beings. They're travelers, yet they don't have the signs of traveling on them. And when I give them the food, they don't not even salivate. They don't even care to touch this food. He got scared. It's like, who are these guys? They're messengers. They are angels. They came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to inform you something. Three delegates, delegation of three messengers, or three biggest angels to come in to take the shape and come to talk to me in the shape of men. Must be something big. He got scared. What's going on? They told him to be scared. They gave him the bushra. They gave him the good news. You will have a child. At the time, Ibrahim alayhi salam was more than 100 years old. His wife more than 90 years old. And she was standing there listening in behind the door when they told him, don't be scared. And you know what? We have some good news for you. You will have a child. His wife was standing behind the door. فأقبلت امرأته فصكت وجهها وقالت عجوز رقيم. She came in and she slapped her face. She kind of hit her face like that. And she's saying, an old woman, barren old woman cannot have children. What are you guys talking about? قالوا كذلك قال ربك إنه هو العليم الحكيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala هو الحكيم العليم. He's the all wise and all knowledgeable. This is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're going to have a child. Not only a child, a child and a child. So he asked them, he said, what is your thing? What are you guys are doing? He says, oh, we are sent to the people of Lut. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to come to you first. And he told him, he says, how about you can destroy the whole city. And how about there's some believers in it? The Muslimin. He says, oh, we looked into that. And we got all the Muslims, we will get them out. All the mu'mineen, all the believers, we're going to get them out. We will destroy all the city, and we will leave it as a sign for people, for the bad, evil people who are acting the way they did, is that this is their end game. This is their demise if they act that way. This is a lesson for others. That is the mention here in the ayah number 31. When our messengers have come to Ibrahim with the bushra, with the good news of having the child, they said to him, Inna muhliku ahli hadhihi al-qarya, we will be destroying the occupants of this village. They are transgressors, they are evildoers. Uh, they are evildoers, they're doing bad actions, they're doing bad deeds. قال, he said, and this is kind of similar argument here. قال إن فيها لوطا نحن أعلم بمن فيها لننجينه. You know, he said, Ibrahim alayhi salam, to them, Lut is in it. Lut is in this village. In other words, Lut is the good doer. And he will be, he's living in there. He's a good doer. How could you possibly destroy the whole city? How would you possibly destroy the city? And he's in it. There's a good doer is in it. How could you do this? They said to him, نحن أعلم بمن فيها. We know who is more is in it, who's more in the village, who's more in it. And we know who is going to be going. We know who's going to be. We know who's going to be, who lives in the city, and we know who is in the, who are the good doers. We know the good people are in it. We know more than you do. In other words, to him. لَنُنَجِّيَنَّهُ, we will save him. وَأَهْلَهُ, and his people, and his family. إِلَّا امْرَأَتَهُ, except his wife. إِن كَانَتْ مِنَ الْغَابِرِينَ, she was from the goners, from the ones who are no longer being accounted for. And that is similar to the message, similar to the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam in Surah Al-Dhariyat. So what he says, he told him, says, how could you destroy it? And Lut is there, he's a good guy. He's a great guy. He's a believer, and there's good believers are in there. How could you possibly destroy this there? He says, no, we know who's in there. They asked him. They answered him. Actually, in the tafsir, in one of the tafsir, they looked at each other, and they said to each other, they said, Subhanallah, Ibrahim is awwab. No, awwab. He cares about the others. Even though they are in different cities, he's so caring about the other believers, that he's so caring about what they do, he's so caring about what they say, and he's so protective of them. He's kind of fighting for in their behalf. Unlike, I always give you the example, subhanAllah, today, Muslims today, and they're part of the behavior, if we don't act like Ibrahim alayhi salam, we protect each other, we defend each other, in front of each other, in the back of each other, while believers somewhere else in the world. SubhanAllah, today you find some of the Muslim Ummah, today we're backstabbing each other. Say, look at the people in that region, look at the people over here, look what they do, and on and on and on. Saying bad things about them and making accusations, sometimes completely baseless, sometimes just made up. Look at Ibrahim alayhi salam. He's defending them. Even though he's not there with them, but he said, these are believers, these are my people. These are my ummah. This is, we all belong to the same, group. Defend them. He's defending them. He's walking. He's saying they cannot be destroyed. They cannot be punished like the rest of them. The angels, they said to him, they said, we know the good doers are there. We will save him and his family and everybody who is with him, is a believer with him. And, we will get them out. We will bring him to safety, except his wife. She's a goner because she is not worthy. She's not deserving for her to be saved at this point. The ayah number 33. وَلَمَّا أَنْ جَاءَتْ رُسُلُنَا لُوطًا سِيءَ بِهِمْ وَضَاقَ بِهِمْ ذَرْعًا وَقَالُوا لَا تَخَفْ وَلَا تَحْزَنْ إِنَّا مُنَجُّوكَ وَأَهْلَكَ إِلَّا امْرَأَتَكَ كَانَتْ مِنَ الْغَابِرِينَ. So the three messengers, which is the Jibreel alayhi salam, Mikael alayhi salam, and Israfil alayhi salam, the three angels, they left Ibrahim in where he was at, and they took off. They went to the village of Lut, all dressed up. They looked like good-looking men, dressed up well, they're beautiful, good looking. They walked in, and this is the story Mufassirin said, and this is what it says here. They came to Lut. He, of course, as hospitable as he should be, as he is, as a prophet from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as a believer, was very hospitable to his own, guests. He brought them in. He opened up the door on them, for them. They got in. He is being a good host to them. His wife, and that was the story, she committed the khiyana. The khiyana is mentioned in the Quran, how the wife of Nuh alayhi salam, she committed the treachery and she betrayed him, as well as the wife of Lut, she betrayed him. The betrayal here, the khiyana, is not that she had an affair or anything like that. The khiyana is that she betrayed his path, his cause. So the wife of Lut alayhi salam, the minute they walked in and saw the way they looked, she immediately informed her people, there's 3 good-looking guests, men, are in our house, come in, take a look at them. And that gives you an idea what kind of state of mind this community was in. If the wife of Lut alayhi salam, she informs her own people, come in and take a look at them, as they are prey, or they are a toy or game for them, or for them to dispense their pleasures at. Men, good-looking, fresh men, new men in the community, and she is actually assisting them. She's not denying, she's not objecting, or she's not saying that whatever they commit from, this kind of, homosexuality, whatever is bad, is actually, she is admitting it, that is something good, and she's assisting them to do this kind of action. So she sends, news to them. There's people are in the guests of Lut, come and take a look at them. So they all came in, or some of them, they came in, and they stopped right there in front of the door of Lut alayhi salam. They stood there waiting for them to come out, or some of the scholars say that actually they're knocking on the door, they want to get in, and they want to, approach these men. And this is the word si'a bihim. They were treated badly. They were treated in sawa, something sayyi, something bad, like this. وَضَاقَ بِهِمْ ذَرْعًا. Lut alayhi salam got so agitated with them, with these old people. What is wrong with you? How could you do this? These are my guests. You are embarrassing me. You are treating, you're standing there, you're doing such a bad thing, and you have no shame, and you have no remorse about what you do, and you're just like so aggressive with this, what you guys are doing. They said to him, the 3 messengers, Lut alayhi salam, they told him the 2 things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always mentioned in the Quran. As he said, the mother of Musa says, do not have hazan, la takhafi wa la tahzan. And he told them, says, la takhaf wa la tahzan. Do not be afraid, and do not have hasan, do not have any sadness. And as I always mention to you, brothers, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala combined all the ill feelings, all the bad feelings, and for the future, under the khawf, under the fear. And he combined all the good or the bad or the ill feelings for the past under hazan, sadness. Like, for instance, everything belonging to the past, depressing or sad or upset or remorseful or being, or regretful, or because he missed on something, whatever, that is hazan. Or the future, don't have fear. Don't have fear of what's going to happen. Don't have fear what the end results are going to be. Don't have fear, and no anticipation, no frustration, on and on for the future. They told him, said, don't have fear, don't have sadness. Don't get upset about something that's going to happen in the past. Don't worry about what happened in the past, and don't worry about anything that's going to happen in the future. لا تخف ولا تحزن. Inna munajju, we will save you and your ahl and your family and your followers. Illa mura'atak, except your wife. Innaha kanat min al-ghabirin. She was from as the best explanation of ghabir is the one it is gone, is no longer, it's kind of went with the dust, went with the eventuality of things. Is no longer, being accounted for. من الغابرين, like that. ولما أن جاءت رسلنا, لوطا سيء بهم وضاق بهم ذرعا وقالوا لا تخف ولا تحزن إنا منجوك وأهلك إلا امرأتك كانت من الغابرين. No questions asked. She's gone. Then the next ayah, number 34. إنا منزلون على أهل هذه القرية رجزا من السماء بما كانوا يفسقون. We are bringing upon the occupants of this qaryah, upon this village, upon this city, will ridges from heaven. That is because of what they fisq, because of their fisq they used to commit. What are the two words here? Ridges and fisq. Ridges means, and by the way, the Quran is mentioned in two different ways. We say ridges, ridges. Ridges, as most of the scholars explained it as through impurities, and they call it like many different ways as thing. We go back to the source of ridges. Ridges, the Arab, the Arabian communities, especially the Bedouin communities, they used to call it disease, which is they did not understand what it was. It used to hit the back of the camel. So when the camel, they still see a camel. Obviously, they have no medicinal, equipment or tools. They did not know what the disease was, whatever. So when a camel used to walk in a weird, unusual way, unfitting, unlike normal camels, they used to say, and because of that, whatever disease he has in his back, they used to call him, this camel has ridges. So they're not speaking of that specific disease, but they are speaking the result of this ridges as to makes the camel act, walk, run, behave different than normal camel he would behave normally. So the ridges is, in this case, it is something will occur on, in this case happen to be the camel, will occur on him, make him act different than normal camel, or will put him in a place different than a normal camel would be. So when the ridges comes in this case, when it comes upon people, what was it going to do? Will put them in a different place where they're normally at. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted them to be in the beginning, where He supplied them and gave them things to live this life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them ni'mah. What did He give them? Ni'mah. Gave them power, gave them safety, gave them rizq, gave them good life. So when the rizq happens to them, they will live different than that shape. So there will be life of torture, will be life of pain, life of agony, life of, instead of having water and food, there will be thirst and hunger. So ridges will bring them outside of what they used to be. When some of the scholars explain the ridges as adab, as torture from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, isn't that meaning? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He created mankind, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed mankind and said, you do good. Your place is in the Jannah, respect, safety, eternal, beautiful life. But the ridges will make him get out of that place, and he will end up in the hellfire because he will be tortured, he will be in pain, he will be in agony, he will have a continuous life of refreshed skin that will be, in pain and agony, being destroyed, and on and on and on, like this kind of life. This is the ridges. So the angels, the three messengers, they said, we are bringing down upon the occupants of this village ridges. Could be explained as torture? Yes. Could be explained as a torment? Yes. As punishment? Yes. On and on. But ultimately, if we understand the actual ridges, something that will put them in a different place, either they're used to, or they should be deserving, they should be living in. They should be living in safety and whatever. They will be living in something completely different. Will turn their life upside down. Will turn their life in a different destiny when they're supposed to be or they're at. Ridges. And now bring them from heaven, ridges in the sama. And ومرأته, and then it says رِجْزًا مِنْ السَّمَاءِ بِمَا كَانُوا يَفْسُقُونَ, because of what the fisq they used to commit. The fisq is, as we mentioned before, is when the nucleus or the seed of the date gets out of its place, it's outside of its place. So it becomes fisq. That's what fisq is. فسقت النواة. فسقت went outside of his place. So a man, a person is fasiq, is somebody who went outside of the realm of good, outside of Iman, outside of Islam. He become fasiq. He went outside. He's no longer in the right place. He's outside of it. It could mean kufr, could mean shirk, could mean somebody who's committing big crimes, like for instance, somebody committing, who's killing others, somebody who is, committing, drinking, fusuq, or zina, or fornication, adultery, and on and on. This is called fusuq, fisq. Because if they went outside their place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring them rijz upon them to put them outside of what they deserve, where they should be getting, the life they should be in. You see the connection between the rijz and the fisq and that meaning. And then they said to him, وَلَقَدْ تَرَكْنَا مِنْهَا آيَةً بَيِّنَةً لِقَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ. And we have left an ayah. From this, an ayah, a sign, a signal, a miracle, something to be talked about. بَيِّنَة, clear. There's no ambiguity about it. The sign. For others, لِقَوْمٍ, for people who يَعْقِلُونَ. And we talked about the word aql. Aql means mind, brain, or a thinking, a way of thinking. Also, yaqil means to tie. People yaqilun is that, and the meaning here could be the people are thinkers, the people who think about the consequences of things for the future. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is made an example out of it, has made it a living example that all the societies, all the communities, everybody talks about it. These bad actions with these people brought them death and demise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made an example. So anybody who thinks about it, you should be very careful, very cautious of not to do what they were doing, not to act the way they were acting, not to meet their end or their demise. That's one meaning. قَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ was also for people who are keeping the information in their mind, to yaqil, to tie, to contain and not to allow the information to escape from them overall. So that was the second example. What's the third example? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins, وَإِلَى مَدْيَنَ أَخَاهُمْ شُعَيْبًا. Shu'aib, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him to to Madian. Madian is somewhere in the northern part of the Arabian Peninsula. And these are people, they were living in that area, they were living the good life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Shu'aib, their prophet, to them. He is from the same people, the same city as later down the road when Musa alayhi salam approached. He went and he took shelter and he married the son of one of the daughters. He married one of the daughters from the shepherd, the elderly shepherd, one of the daughters there. And there's also the people of Madian. That's the same place. وَإِلَى مَدْيَنَ, to Madian, أَخَاهُمْ شُعَيْبًا, their brother Shu'aib. Shu'aib was not one of them. He came to them from outside. أَخَاهُمْ, their brother in Islam. فقال, he said to them, يَا قَوْمِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَارْجُوا الْيَوْمَ الْآخِرَ وَلَا تَعْثَوْا فِي الْأَرْضِ مُفْسِدِينَ. Look at the messages here. The people of Lut, their behavior, their acting is so bad, is so evil, so not acceptable within their communities. Here, there is worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He told them, اعبدوا, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَارْجُوا الْيَوْمَ الْآخِرِ, and be looking forward to the day of judgment, for you to have good results in it. We'll have raja, to have hopefulness, for you to work hard for that day, the day of judgment, the last day. وَلَا تَعْثَوْا فِي الْأَرْضِ مُفْسِدِينَ. So 3 messages. Worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, work hard for the day of judgment, and do not spread fasad, do not spread mischief. وَلَا تَعْثَوْا فِي الْأَرْضِ مُفْسِدِينَ. عَثَى يَعْثُو is that for him to spread and to make it prevalent, to make يَعْثُ, fasad, mischief, bad deeds, bad actions. What did they do? The ayah number 37, فَكَذَّبُوهُ, they denied him. They rejected him. They called him a liar. They did not believe in what he had said. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَخَذَتْهُمُ الرَّجْفَةُ فَأَصْبَحُوا فِي دَارِهِمْ جَاثِمِينَ. The rajfa, the shaking. So shaking today, the closest example, and we cannot be 100% sure about this, the closest example of the shaking is the earthquake. So an earthquake came in, shook them, rajfa, to shook them, so they were in their own places, but they could not exit, they could not leave. Jathimin, were staying as Juthman. The people of Lut, what was their punishment? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought them, ridges from heaven, upon them. And we know from the other ayat what has happened to them. Also, Surah Dariyat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the three messengers, each one of them carrying a rock from mud, hard rock, and threw it. And it was, each one of those has a name on it. He threw it at each, they threw it at each one of those people. They died. Eventually, Jibreel alayhi salam took it, and after he shook it, he turned it upside down. That's why today we cannot find the city. There's no evidence whatsoever of these people where they were. Complete destruction, complete demise. The people of Shu'aib, the people of Madian, Rajfa, the earthquake. And what was their message? Worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have raja, work for the day of judgment. Number three, and do not spread mischief, do not spread fasad in the earth overall. The fourth message, the fifth message, the ayah number 38. وَعَادًا وَثَمُودًا. The people of Ad, the people of Thamud. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَدْ تَبَيَّنَ لَكُم مِّن مَّسَاكِنِهِمْ. And it was clear to you from their places where they used to live. The people of Ad today, somewhere in the Yemen, in the south, and somewhere towards Oman, in the eastern part of Yemen. Their evidence for the places they used to live. They carved their homes in the valleys, in the mountains, and they lived in the valleys. They have a great, metropolises. They have great civilizations. They have, dams. They maintain the water, and on and on. All that's gone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَدْ تَبَيَّنَ لَكُم مِّن مَّسَاكِنِهِمْ. It was clear to you from the places they used to live in. وَزَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَعْمَالَهُم. And the shaitan beautified their actions, beautified their deeds. فَصَدَّهُمْ عَنِ السَّبِيلِ. He pushed them away from the road, from the path. وَكَانُوا مُسْتَبْصِرِينَ. And they were مُسْتَبْصِرِينَ. The meaning here is mustabsirin, as to the meaning here as to they had basira to look at the future, and they used to have way to see things as to the path of things to the future, but they were way off base. They were completely off base. وَكَانُوا مُسْتَبْصِرِينَ from the meaning here. وَعَادًا. And then, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talk about them, of what they used to, of their own ways, what they used to know, everything that, the past they used to make and everything they used to do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took them because of their own sins, because they disobeyed the messengers overall. The ayah number 39, وَقَارُونَ. Now go to the individuals. Qarun, we spoke about Qarun. Who's Qarun? Was from Qawmi Musa, from the people of Musa alayhi salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him money. فَبَغَى عَلَيْهِمْ. He has transgressed upon them. Fir'aun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has tested him with power. Qarun with money, Fir'aun with power. But Haman. Haman is the soldier of Fir'aun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested him with the power, the soldiers and the power to oppress and aggress people, to go after people. وَلَقَدْ جَاءَهُمْ بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ. Musa بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ. Musa came to them with bayinat, with the clarifications, with the signs for them to stop what they were doing and to follow him in the clear path. فَاسْتَكْبَرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. They were arrogant in the face of this earth. وَمَا كَانُوا سَابِقِينَ. They were not defeated. They did not beat anybody. Actually, they get defeated, and they were in the back of the game. They thought they were ahead of everybody. Actually, they weren't. You notice here what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned Ibrahim alayhi salam, prophet, and mentioned and his people. And then mentioned Lut alayhi salam and his people. And then mentioned Shu'aib and with his people. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the people of Ad, the people of Thamud. This is 5 nations altogether. And then he brings the 3 individuals. So the stories here combined about the the people as general nations, the things they used to do as nations, as as groups, and then as singular, evildoers, big evildoers, bad evildoers, like who, like Fir'aun and Qarun and Haman. These are the bad doers, what they used to do also as well. And subhanAllah, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Lut to his people, Ibrahim to his people, Shu'aib to the people of Midian, and Ad and Thamud also as well, the two nations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Musa alayhi salam to the three, to Qarun, to Fir'aun, to Haman, the three, to straighten their path. But they made istighfar, they were arrogant, they pushed back, they did not want to believe. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَكُلًّا أَخَذْنَا بِذَنْبِهِ. With everyone we have taken with his dhanb, with his sin, or what he has committed. وَمِنْهُمْ, some of them, خَسَفْنَا بِهِ الْأَرْضِ, some of them, we have sunk him into the ground. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ أَغْرَقْنَا, and some of them who we have drowned. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيَظْلِمَهُمْ وَلَكِنْ كَانُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ يَظْلِمُونَ. And for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would never ever transgress upon them, would commit dhulm against them, but they were transgressing against themselves. They were doing bad deeds against themselves. There's the ones who did it to themselves. Kind of like what we say today, as an example. A teacher in classroom, when he gives homework or he tells his students to do something. And then these students, they don't do the job, they don't do the work. So he punishes the students. So the student, out of short-sightedness, what does he say? He would look up and say, you are the one who did this thing. You're the one who punished me. The truth is, the teacher will look at him and say, I did not punish you. You were the one who caused the punishment yourself, because you knew, and I warned you, if you don't do your homework, if you act badly in the classroom, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, or you do the opposite of it, you do these bad things, you will be punished. So you're the one who brought the punishment upon yourself. Even though the punishment is executed, is done by the teacher. In this case here, it's done by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيَظْلِمَهُمْ. We did not transgress upon them. We did not cause this to them. We did not, we don't cross the limit with them. وَلَكِنْ كَانُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ يَظْلِمُونَ. They transgressed upon themselves. They crossed the limits within their own actions, within their own deeds, and they paid the price for what they have done. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from the ones who follow the path of the Quran and understand the ayat, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the full understanding of it and give us, inshallah, the ni'mah of